I stood in the hospital corridor watching my stepbrother walk into an operating room. He might not come out alive. The surgery had a 20% fatality rate, and he was doing it to save our stepfather's life. But here's the thing. Our stepfather had been dead for 3 weeks. My name is Dr. Rachel Kim, and this is the story of how an inheritance scheme turned into a nightmare, how a hospital became a slaughterhouse, and how I discovered that sometimes the people trying to save you are actually trying to kill you. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was finishing my residency at Seattle General Hospital. Dr. Kim, this is Gerald Morrison, attorney for the estate of David Morrison. Your stepfather has requested your immediate presence at Evergreen Medical Center. It's urgent. Excuse me? I said, confused. My stepfather is dead. We buried him 3 weeks ago. There was a pause. I'm afraid there's been a complication. Please come to Evergreen immediately. Room 447. Come alone. The line went dead. David Morrison had married my mother when I was 15. He'd been a decent stepfather, paid for my medical school, attended my graduation, treated me like his own daughter even though he had 3 biological children from his first marriage. When he died of a heart attack 3 weeks ago, I'd mourned alongside my stepbrothers Marcus and Tyler and my stepsister Jenna. We weren't a close family, but we'd shared the loss. The funeral had been beautiful. My mother had given a tearful eulogy about the man who'd given her 15 happy years. David's children had each shared memories, some warm, some awkward, but all seemingly genuine. The cremation had been respectful. We'd scattered his ashes at his favorite lake, watching the gray powder disappear into the water as the sun set. So why was his lawyer telling me David was in a hospital? I tried calling my mother, but she didn't answer. I texted Marcus, Tyler, and Jenna. No responses. Something felt wrong. Deeply wrong. But curiosity and concern drove me to get in my car and head to the address Gerald had given me. I drove to Evergreen Medical Center, a private facility I'd never heard of, located in an industrial area outside Seattle. The building looked more like a warehouse than a hospital. Gray concrete, few windows, minimal signage. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few expensive cars scattered across the spaces. No ambulances, no signs of the usual hospital traffic. Inside, the lobby was eerily empty. No patients, no families. Just one receptionist who directed me to the 4th floor without asking my name, as if she'd been expecting me. The elevator was too quiet. No muzak, no announcements, just the hum of machinery as it carried me upward. Room 447 was at the end of a long, fluorescent-lit hallway. The lights flickered occasionally, casting strange shadows. I knocked. Come in, Rachel. I opened the door to find Gerald Morrison, Dad's lawyer, standing beside a hospital bed. In the bed, hooked up to monitors and IVs, was my stepfather, David Morrison, very much alive. What the hell is going on? I demanded. David looked terrible, pale, thin, weak, but conscious. His eyes met mine and I saw something there. Fear, confusion, guilt. Rachel, thank God you came. I need your help. You're dead. We buried you. I saw your body. You saw a body, Gerald corrected. Not his body. I felt like the room was spinning. Someone want to explain what's happening? David struggled to sit up, grimacing with pain. 3 weeks ago, I discovered I was dying. Kidney failure, liver damage, heart disease, decades of hard living catching up with me. I had maybe a month to live without transplants. So you faked your death? Why? To test my children, Gerald said. To see which of them would be willing to save his life when there was something in it for them. I don't understand. David coughed weakly. I need multiple organs. A kidney from one donor, part of a liver from another, possibly a lung. The doctors told me my biological children were all perfect matches for different organs. So I created a test. He gestured to a document on the side table. My will states that whoever donates an organ to save my life inherits my entire estate. $8 billion. I stared at him. You can't be serious. The surgery is risky, David continued. 20% chance the donor dies on the table. But if they survive, they get everything. Marcus, Tyler, and Jenna have all been contacted. They're on their way here now. This is insane. You're asking your children to gamble their lives for money. I'm asking them to save their father. The money is just motivation. I stepped closer to the bed, my medical training overriding my shock. What about my mother? Does she know you're alive? David looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Your mother thinks I'm dead. It's better that way. This is between me and my biological children. Better that way? Dad, you let her grieve for 3 weeks. She's been devastated. How could you... She'll understand when this is over, David interrupted. When I'm healthy again, when the surgeries work, I'll explain everything. She'll forgive me. You don't know that. You don't know Mom at all if you think she'll just forgive this level of manipulation. And me? Why am I here? I pressed. Because you're a doctor, Gerald said. We need you to verify that this is legitimate, that David really is dying, that the surgeries are real, that this isn't some elaborate con. I wanted to walk out, to report this madness to the authorities, but my medical training kicked in. Show me his charts. David's medical records were genuine. Stage 4 kidney disease, cirrhosis, congestive heart failure. Without transplants, he had weeks at most, but something about the documentation felt off. The dates didn't quite line up. Some test results seemed duplicated with slight variations, and the attending physician's signature looked almost identical across dozens of pages. Too identical, like a stamp, rather than actual handwriting. The hospital, Evergreen Medical Center, was legitimate, though barely. It was owned by a Dr. Lawrence Chen, a surgeon I'd never heard of, operating in a gray area of medical ethics. I researched Dr. Chen during a break. His credentials were real: Johns Hopkins Medical School, residency at Mass General. But there were gaps in his employment history. 3 years in Taiwan where records were sparse. 2 years in the Philippines. A pattern of moving between jurisdictions, never staying long enough to establish a real practice. We specialize in experimental procedures, Dr. Chen explained when I met him in his office. He was in his 50s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of smooth confidence that immediately made me distrust him. Living donor transplants with financial incentives, perfectly legal under certain circumstances. Bribing people to donate organs is illegal? When they're family members making informed decisions with proper legal documentation. In some jurisdictions, yes. Mr. Morrison has ensured we're operating within the law. We have ethics board approval, legal counsel, and full documentation. Barely. Dr. Chen smiled thinly. Your stepbrothers and sister have been informed of the risks. They're adults. They can make their own choices. We're simply facilitating those choices. Facilitating, is that what you call it? Dr. Kim, I understand your skepticism, but organ donation saves lives. Your stepfather needs these organs. His children have the opportunity to save him and secure their financial futures. Everyone benefits, except the ones who die on the operating table. The risks are clearly disclosed. 20% fatality rate is significant, yes, but also means 80% survival. Those are better odds than many cancer treatments. I left his office feeling sick. Everything was legal, properly documented, technically ethical, but it felt wrong in every possible way. Marcus arrived first. He was 35, a real estate developer who'd never been close to David. I'd met him a dozen times over the years at weddings, funerals, awkward family dinners. We'd never connected, never become real siblings despite our parents' marriage. But $8 billion was $8 billion. Is this real? He asked me in the waiting room. Dad's really dying? According to these charts, yes. And if I donate a kidney, I inherit everything? That's what the will says. But Marcus, there's a 20% chance you die during the surgery. 1 in 5. Those aren't good odds. Marcus looked at David through the observation window. Our stepfather was asleep, looking frail and old, nothing like the vigorous businessman who'd built a real estate empire. He was never much of a father, Marcus said quietly. Always working, always absent. My real memories of him are from when I was a kid before. He got so successful. We used to go fishing. He'd take me to baseball games. But then the business took off and he just disappeared into his work. People change. Yeah, they do, but he paid for my business school, gave me my start, invested in my first development deal when no one else would, and $8 billion. Could buy a lot of things, but not a life. Marcus turned to me. Rachel, I'm 35 years old. I've built a decent business, but I'll never have a chance at this kind of wealth again. This is generational money. My kids' kids would be set for life. Is that worth a 20% risk? Only you can answer that. I've made my decision. I'm doing it. I wanted to talk him out of it, to tell him that David's test was cruel and manipulative, that no inheritance was worth dying for, but I could see the determination in his eyes mixed with something else, maybe the desire to finally do something that would make David proud. Then I'll be here, I said, monitoring everything. If anything goes wrong, I'll intervene. Thanks, Rachel. That means a lot. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. I stayed overnight, unable to shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The hospital provided me with a small sleeping room, more like a closet with a cot. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus on the operating table, his heart stopping, his life ending for a chance at billions. At 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up and wandered the hospital corridors, trying to clear my head. That's when I noticed something odd. The fourth floor where David was staying had no other patients. Just empty rooms with neatly made beds, waiting for occupants who never came. I checked the third floor, also empty. The rooms looked staged, like a movie set, functional but unused. The second floor, empty. I took the stairs down to the first floor, my footsteps echoing in the stairwell. The lobby was dark except for emergency lighting. The receptionist was gone. I walked the entire first floor, 20 patient rooms, all empty. The entire hospital seemed to be operating solely for David's transplant scheme. Where were the other patients? What kind of medical facility had 0 patients except one elaborate transplant case? I went back to my room, more disturbed than ever. Something was very, very wrong with Evergreen Medical Center. Marcus's surgery began at 7 a.m. I watched from the observation gallery as Dr. Chen and his team prepped Marcus for the nephrectomy, kidney removal. The surgical team was professional. 5 people, all properly gowned and masked, moving with practiced efficiency. They'd clearly done this before. But as I watched, I noticed something strange. The anesthesiologist kept checking a laptop position just outside the surgical field. Not medical equipment. A regular laptop with what looked like a spreadsheet open. I couldn't see the details from the observation gallery, but the behavior was odd. Anesthesiologists monitor patients, not spreadsheets. The procedure seemed routine at first. Dr. Chen made the initial incision, expertly dissecting through tissue layers to access the kidney. His movements were precise, confident. But then, 20 minutes in, Marcus's vitals started crashing. "He's in V-fib!" a nurse shouted. "Defib now!" Dr. Chen ordered. They shocked Marcus's heart. The first jolt made his body convulse on the table. Nothing. His heart rhythm stayed chaotic. Second shock. Still nothing. Third shock. The monitor continued showing ventricular fibrillation, a fatal rhythm if not corrected. I stood up in the observation gallery, ready to run down and intervene, but the security guard at the door blocked my way. Dr. Chen's orders, no one enters during surgery. That's my brother down there. Stepbrother, and Dr. Chen has this under control. On the fourth shock, Marcus's heart restarted. The monitor showed sinus rhythm, normal, steady, alive. The surgery continued, but Marcus had been seconds from death. The 20% risk had nearly claimed him. I noticed Dr. Chen glance up at the observation window. Our eyes met for just a second, and in that moment, I saw something that chilled me. Satisfaction. He'd enjoyed watching Marcus nearly die. When it was over, Dr. Chen emerged looking exhausted but pleased. The kidney is viable. Marcus survived, but it was close. Too close. What happened? Why did his heart stop? Cardiac events can happen during any surgery. The stress on the body, the anesthesia, underlying conditions we didn't catch. He's alive. That's what matters. And my stepfather. The transplant surgery is scheduled for this afternoon. If Marcus's kidney is accepted, David will have a few more months of life. But he still needs the liver and possibly a lung. More surgeries, more risks. More opportunities to save him, unless you'd prefer we let him die? The way he said it, so clinical, so detached, made my skin crawl. This wasn't a doctor fighting to save a patient. This was something else entirely. Marcus woke up in recovery, groggy but alive. I sat beside his bed, holding his hand. "Did it work?" he mumbled. "You survived," I said. "The kidney is being transplanted into David now. You'll inherit the estate." $8 billion, Marcus said, still sedated, his words slurring. "Worth it. Worth almost dying. Gonna buy my kids everything. Everything Dad never gave me." But as I watched him drift back to sleep, I wondered, was it worth it? He'd nearly died, and for what? To save a man who'd created this sick game? To win money by risking everything? I stayed with Marcus for hours, monitoring his vitals, making sure the post-surgical care was appropriate. The nurses were competent, more competent than I'd expected from this strange facility. Around 3 p.m., one of the nurses mentioned that David's transplant surgery had been delayed. "Why?" I asked. Dr. Chen didn't say, just postponed it until tomorrow. That was odd. Organ transplants are time-sensitive. The longer you wait, the less viable the organ becomes. Why would Chen delay? Unless he had other plans for that kidney. Tyler arrived that evening. He was 32, a corporate lawyer with one of Seattle's top firms, and far more skeptical than Marcus. I met him in the lobby. He looked exhausted, still in his work suit, tie loosened, briefcase in hand. "Rachel, what the hell is going on? I get a call from Gerald Morrison saying Dad is alive and needs a liver transplant. We cremated him 3 weeks ago." "I know, it's complicated. Come upstairs, I'll explain everything." In the consultation room, I laid out everything I knew. David's fake death, the organ donation scheme, Marcus's near death on the operating table, the empty hospital, my growing suspicions about Dr. Chen. Tyler listened carefully, his lawyer's mind processing every detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Something's not right about this," he finally said. "Dad's been planning this for how long? Faking his death, setting up this hospital, creating these legal terms?" "At least a few months based on the paperwork." "And you don't think that's suspicious? A dying man orchestrating an elaborate scheme to get his kids to donate organs?" "It's unusual, but the medical records check out. David is dying." Tyler looked at me carefully. "Rachel, you're a doctor. You've seen the charts. But have you run any independent tests, or are you just taking Dr. Chen's word for it?" I hadn't. I'd accepted the medical records at face value because they looked legitimate. But Tyler was right. I'd been taking everything on faith. "I want independent verification," Tyler said. "Blood work, imaging, everything. I want to make sure Dad is actually dying before I risk my life." "That's reasonable. And I want to talk to Marcus, see how he's really doing. Not what the nurses say, but what he actually experienced." "Good idea. He's still pretty out of it, but he can talk." We found Marcus in his recovery room. He looked terrible. Pale, sweating, clearly in significant pain despite the medication. "Tyler," Marcus said weakly, "you came." "Of course I came. Rachel told me what happened. How are you feeling?" Like someone cut out my kidney, Marcus said with a weak attempt at humor. But the nurses say I'm doing fine. Vitals are stable. I should be released in a few days. And Dad? Did the transplant work? I haven't heard. Gerald said they'd update me after the surgery was complete. Tyler and I exchanged glances. The surgery should have been finished hours ago, I said. It was scheduled for this afternoon. Maybe it ran long, Marcus suggested. Kidney transplants take 3 to 4 hours maximum. It's been over 6 hours. We left Marcus to rest and went to David's room. It was empty. The bed was made, the monitors were off, no medical equipment running, no sign of recent surgery. Where is he? Tyler demanded. We found Dr. Chen in his office, reviewing files on his computer. He looked annoyed when we burst in. Where's David Morrison? The kidney transplant should be done by now. Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. He closed his laptop quickly, but not before I caught a glimpse of what looked like financial spreadsheets, not medical charts. There were complications. We had to postpone the surgery. What kind of complications? Medical ones. I can't discuss patient details. I'm family and a licensed physician. You can discuss them with me. Dr. Chen stood up, his friendly demeanor evaporating. David Morrison is in the ICU. His condition deteriorated rapidly. The kidney transplant has been delayed until he stabilizes. I want to see him. That's not possible right now. Why not? Because Dr. Chen paused, choosing his words carefully. Because he's not conscious. He's been sedated for his own safety. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. The way he said sedated for his own safety sounded rehearsed, like a line he'd used before. I'm seeing him, now. Dr. Kim, I must insist. And I must insist that as a licensed physician and a family member, I have the right to see my stepfather's medical condition firsthand. Unless you'd like me to call the state medical board and report your refusal to allow family access. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. Follow me. We found David in the ICU, and what I saw made me physically sick. He was covered in fresh surgical scars, multiple incision sites across his abdomen, his chest, his sides. His body looked harvested. What the hell did you do to him? I demanded. Dr. Chen tried to block my way, but Tyler and I pushed past him. I grabbed David's chart from the end of the bed. What I read made my blood run cold. These aren't transplant recipient scars, I said, my voice shaking. These are donor scars. Someone's been harvesting organs from him, not transplanting into him. Tyler looked at the chart over my shoulder. That's impossible. He's the one who needs organs, not... And then it clicked. The empty hospital. The isolated location. Dr. Chen's shady reputation. The spreadsheets on his computer. The delayed transplant surgery. This isn't a transplant center, I said. It's an organ harvesting operation. And David isn't the patient, he's the product. Dr. Chen's expression went cold. You're mistaken. Those are diagnostic incisions. I'm a surgeon. I know the difference between diagnostic and harvest incisions. You've been removing his organs. Tyler grabbed the chart from me, reading through the surgical notes. His face went white. Right kidney, removed. Partial liver resection. Lung biopsy that removed an entire lobe. Jesus Christ, you've been cutting him apart piece by piece. I can explain. Where did these organs go? I demanded. Where's Marcus's kidney? It never went into David, did it? I grabbed Dr. Chen by his coat, slamming him against the wall. Years of martial arts, training, something I'd taken up during medical school to manage stress, made the move easy. Where's my stepbrother's kidney? Where did it actually go? I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus donated a kidney to save David's life, but David's charts show he's been having organs removed, not transplanted. So where did that kidney go? Who bought it? Dr. Chen's face went pale. You need to leave, both of you, now. Not until you tell me what's happening here. This is a private medical facility. I'm asking you to leave, or I'll have security remove you. Security guards appeared in the doorway, 2 large men with weapons on their belts. Not medical security. These were private military contractors, the kind hired to protect valuable assets. Escort them out, Dr. Chen ordered. Tyler started to argue, but I grabbed his arm. Let's go. We need to regroup. But Dad is alive for now. We need to figure out what's really going on before we can help him. The guards escorted us roughly to the elevator, then to a locked conference room on the 3rd floor. Wait here, one guard said. Dr. Chen will speak with you shortly. The door locked behind them. Tyler immediately pulled out his phone. No signal. They're jamming it. We need to call the police, I said. With what proof? Dr. Chen will destroy the evidence before they arrive, and we're locked in a room with armed guards outside. We need something solid before we can make accusations stick. Then what do we do? Before I could answer, the door opened. Gerald Morrison, the lawyer, entered. He looked older than when I'd seen him that morning. Tired, stressed, guilty. I'm sorry it came to this, Gerald said. I hoped you'd just accept the inheritance terms and not ask questions. What's going on here, Gerald? Tyler demanded. What have you gotten our father into? Gerald sat down heavily like a man carrying an enormous weight. David Morrison really is dying, but not from kidney failure or liver disease. He has terminal brain cancer, glioblastoma, 6 weeks to live, maximum. The organ failure symptoms were fabricated. Why? I asked, though I was starting to understand. Because David's organs are worth a fortune on the black market. He's O-negative, universal donor, relatively healthy organs despite the brain cancer. Dr. Chen can sell them for millions. Tens of millions, actually, when you account for the entire inventory. Inventory, Tyler repeated, disgusted. You're talking about our father like he's merchandise. To Dr. Chen, that's exactly what he is. A collection of viable organs attached to a dying brain. So you're harvesting him while he's still alive? I said. He's barely conscious. The brain tumor has destroyed most of his cognitive function. He's essentially a vegetable, just a body being kept alive by machines. Dr. Chen convinced David to sign papers months ago, when he was still lucid, agreeing to organ donation upon death. But he's not dead, yet. Legally, no. Medically, he's brain dead in all the ways that matter. Dr. Chen is exploiting a gray area in the law, keeping him technically alive while harvesting organs one by one, selling them to the highest bidders. Tyler stood up, his fists clenched. And the inheritance? The will promising everything to whoever donates organs? A fabrication. A way to get his biological children here under false pretenses. We needed compatible donors for some of the organs we're selling. Marcus's kidney is going to a wealthy buyer in Singapore for $3 million. If you'd agreed, Tyler, your liver would have gone to someone in Dubai for $5 million. You're harvesting us, I said, the full horror of it hitting me. You're killing David slowly and harvesting his children to maximize profits. Not killing, donating. Everything is legal, technically. Donors sign consent forms. They're informed of risks. The surgeries are performed by licensed physicians. We're operating in the gray areas of international organ transplant law. This is murder and organ trafficking, Tyler shouted. Gerald pulled out a gun from his jacket. A small revolver, but deadly at this range. And you're going to keep quiet about it, both of you, because if you don't, you'll join David as donors. Dr. Chen has already prepared the paperwork. The guards locked us in the conference room. Tyler immediately started looking for a way out, checking the door, examining the windows. The windows are reinforced, he said. Probably bulletproof glass. Door is solid steel with an electronic lock. We're trapped. There has to be a way out, We need to warn Jenna. She's supposed to arrive tomorrow. If she comes here, they'll harvest her too. If we don't escape, we're dead anyway. They can't let us leave now that we know the truth. I examined the room more carefully. Medical facility, so there should be emergency protocols, fire suppression systems, ventilation. I checked the ceiling, standard drop tiles. Help me move this table, I said. We stacked furniture, creating a makeshift ladder. I climbed onto the conference table, then onto a chair balanced on top of it, and pushed aside a ceiling tile. Above the drop tiles was a crawl space with electrical conduits, HVAC ducts, and ventilation shafts. Tight, dark, dusty, but navigable. There's a vent shaft, I called down. I think I can reach the ICU through the ductwork. Be careful, if you fall. I know, but we don't have a choice. I pulled myself up into the ceiling space. The metal framework creaked under my weight, but held. I crawled carefully across the support beams, trying not to think about the drop below. The crawl space was hot, poorly ventilated, claustrophobic. I followed the sound of medical equipment, the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the hiss of ventilators. 5 minutes of crawling through dust and darkness, and I found a vent looking down into the ICU. David was still there, unconscious, covered in surgical bandages. But he wasn't alone. Dr. Chen was preparing for another surgery. Surgical drapes, instruments laid out, anesthesia cart wheeled into position, and on the table next to David was Marcus. My stepbrother was unconscious, already intubated, being prepped for what looked like a major abdominal surgery. They weren't waiting for informed consent. They were just taking what they wanted. I had to do something. I couldn't get to Marcus from here, but I could access the ICU's computer system. I found an access panel in the ceiling, carefully removed it, and dropped down into an empty patient room, 2 doors down from the ICU. The room was dark. I moved quietly to the door, checked the hallway, empty, and slipped across to a nurse's station. The computer was logged in. Medical records system. I accessed Marcus's file. The surgery scheduled for him was labeled Living Donor Liver Resection, Extended Protocol. They were planning to take most of his liver, not just the lobe they'd claimed. The notes indicated they'd also harvest his pancreas and small intestine section. They were going to gut him, take everything valuable and leave him to die on the table. I changed the file, marked Marcus as having a severe systemic infection. Any surgery would spread it and kill him. Added flags for hepatitis C, HIV, and several other bloodborne pathogens. Contaminated organs can't be sold. I just made Marcus worthless to them. Then I went into the hospital's emergency system and initiated a code blue, cardiac arrest in the ICU. Alarms blared throughout the hospital. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The automated announcement system called for the code team. The ICU erupted in controlled chaos as nurses and doctors responded to the fake cardiac arrest. Dr. Chen rushed from the surgical prep area, leaving Marcus unattended. In the confusion, I slipped into the ICU, went to Marcus's gurney, and started disconnecting him from the prep equipment. "Rachel, what's happening?" Marcus mumbled, still heavily sedated. "You're in danger. We need to get you out of here now." "I can barely walk." "Then I'll help you. Can you sit up?" With effort, Marcus managed to swing his legs over the side of the gurney. I supported his weight, wrapping his arm over my shoulder. A nurse spotted us. "Hey, that patient can't leave. Dr. Chen's orders. He needs to remain here for emergency surgery." "I'm a physician, and this patient is being discharged against medical advice. He has multiple infectious contraindications that make surgery lethal. Get out of my way, or I'm reporting this facility for attempting to operate on a contaminated patient." The medical terminology and my authoritative tone worked. The nurse hesitated, confused, and stepped aside. We made it to the elevator. I hit the button for the 3rd floor. Had to get Tyler. The elevator seemed to take forever. Marcus was getting heavier as the sedation wore off and pain took over. "Rachel, my side hurts. What did they do to me?" "They were going to do worse. I stopped them. Just hold on." 3rd floor. The corridor was empty. Everyone had responded to the code blue upstairs. I found the conference room, used a fire axe from the emergency station to smash the electronic lock. Tyler was inside, trying to pry open the window with a chair leg. He spun around when I burst in. "Rachel, how did you—" "No time. We're leaving, all of us, right now." I explained quickly as we helped Marcus down the hallway toward the stairs. The elevator was too risky. They'd be monitoring it. "We need to get Dad," Tyler said. "He's too unstable to move. We get out, call the police, come back with real help." "We can't just leave him." "If we stay, we all die. This is triage, Tyler. We save who we can save." We made it to the stairwell, started down. Marcus was struggling, every step causing him pain, but he pushed through. First floor. The lobby was still empty except for the receptionist, who looked up in alarm as we emerged from the stairwell. "Dr. Chen, they're escaping!" she shouted into a radio. "Go!" I yelled. We ran for the exit, Tyler practically carrying Marcus now. I heard footsteps behind us, the security guards. We made it to the parking lot. Tyler's car was still there, right where he'd left it. He helped Marcus into the back seat while I checked behind us. The guards were coming, 2 of them running from the building entrance. "Drive!" I shouted, jumping into the passenger seat. Tyler peeled out of the parking lot. One of the guards pulled a weapon, but we were already on the main road speeding away from Evergreen Medical Center. "Where are we going?" Tyler asked. "Police station. We need to report this now before they destroy all the evidence." In the back seat, Marcus was crying. They were going to kill me, weren't they? Cut me open and take everything. "Yes," I said honestly. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I should have seen this coming sooner." "You saved my life. How did you know?" I explained what I'd discovered. The empty hospital, the harvest scars on David, the spreadsheets on Dr. Chen's computer, the contaminated patient files I'd created. "So Dad really is dying?" Marcus asked. "The brain cancer is real?" "I think so. Gerald had no reason to lie about that part. But the organ failure, the inheritance scheme, all fake. They used David's condition to lure us here, to harvest us all." Tyler was white-knuckled on the steering wheel, driving fast but controlled. "We need evidence. Something concrete that proves what they were doing. Otherwise, it's our word against a doctor with legal paperwork showing everything was consensual." "I took photos," I said, pulling out my phone. During the chaos, I'd photographed David's medical files, the surgical schedules, the buyer information I'd glimpsed on Dr. Chen's computer. "This should be enough, but we need to move fast. Once they realize we escaped, they'll destroy everything and disappear." Tyler pulled into a police station parking lot 15 minutes later. "Then we don't give them the chance." Detective Sarah Morrison, no relation to our family despite the name, listened to our story with growing alarm. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, the kind of cop who'd seen everything. When I showed her the photos on my phone, she immediately called for backup. "This is a major crime operation," she said, studying the images. "Organ trafficking, fraud, attempted murder, possibly actual murder if other victims went through that facility. We need to raid that place now before they can destroy evidence." She assembled a team. Within an hour, SWAT units and medical examiners surrounded Evergreen Medical Center. Dr. Chen tried to flee. They caught him in the parking lot, loading boxes of files into his car. Gerald Morrison was arrested in his office, attempting to shred documents but moving too slowly to destroy everything. They found David Morrison in the ICU, barely alive, with multiple organs already removed. He was rushed to a legitimate hospital, Seattle General where I worked, for emergency care. The investigation uncovered a massive organ trafficking network operating across 3 states. Dr. Chen had been running this scheme for at least 7 years, using fake medical facilities to harvest organs from vulnerable people. His victims were usually elderly patients with terminal diagnoses, people with no close family, homeless individuals who disappeared without anyone looking for them. He'd perfected a system, convince them to sign organ donation papers, keep them technically alive while harvesting organs one by one, then dispose of the bodies as natural deaths. David Morrison had been one of many victims, but unlike the others, his children had the resources, knowledge, and determination to fight back. Gerald Morrison confessed to everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. He revealed that David had initially come to Dr. Chen seeking legitimate medical treatment for his brain cancer. But when Chen saw David's medical profile, O negative, healthy organs, terminal diagnosis, wealthy family, he'd seen a fortune waiting to be harvested. They'd convinced David to sign multiple documents while he was confused from the tumor and heavy pain medication. Papers that seemed like medical consent forms and estate planning documents, but were actually organ donation agreements and financial transfers. The inheritance scheme had been created to lure David's children to the facility under false pretenses. Each child was tissue typed, evaluated as potential donors, then scheduled for voluntary surgeries that would actually be harvest operations. Marcus had been first because he was the easiest to manipulate. Desperate for money, estranged from David, willing to take risks. Tyler would have been next, then Jenna, and finally me, harvested from my medical organs after I'd served my purpose validating the scheme. Dr. Chen had planned to harvest 5 people, total, David and all 4 of his children. The organs would have netted approximately $40 million on the black market. David Morrison survived the emergency surgeries at Seattle General, but barely. The organ extractions had left him permanently disabled, requiring dialysis and a feeding tube for the rest of his life. The brain cancer was progressing rapidly, destroying more of his cognitive function each day. The doctors gave him maybe a month to live. I visited him every day in the ICU. Some days he was lucid, able to recognize me and understand what had happened. Other days the tumor stole him away, leaving him confused and frightened. On a good day, 2 weeks after his rescue, David grabbed my hand. "Rachel, what happened? Where am I?" "You're at Seattle General. You're safe. We got you away from Dr. Chen." "Chen, the doctor. He said he could help me. I signed so many papers. What did I do?" "You were manipulated, Dad, by people you trusted. They tried to steal your organs and harvest your children, but we stopped them." "My children. Marcus, Tyler, Jenna, where are they?" "Safe. Marcus is recovering. Tyler is fine. Jenna never went to the facility. We warned her in time." David's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, I don't remember the tumor. Everything is so confused. The lawyer said it was for the best. Said you would all be taken care of." "I know, the tumor affected your judgment. Gerald Morrison exploited that. None of this is your fault." "Rachel, I'm dying. I can feel it. The tumor. It's taking me piece by piece." "I know. There's something important. My will, my real will. The lawyer has the fake one, but there's a real one. Safe deposit box at First National Bank. Box 4F47, the real will. Everything split equally. All of you, you have to tell them." "I will, Dad. I promise." He squeezed my hand weakly. "I love you, Rachel. You were always so smart, so strong. I'm proud of you." "I love you too, Dad." He drifted off to sleep. I sat with him for another hour, knowing these moments of clarity were becoming rarer. We found the safe deposit box exactly where David said it would be. Inside was his actual will, written 8 years ago, shortly after he married my mother and before the brain cancer diagnosis. The document was clear and unambiguous. His $8 billion estate would be split equally among all 4 children: Marcus, Tyler, Jenna, and me. We were all included, all equal heirs, not based on biology or competition, but simply because David considered us all his children. The inheritance scheme Gerald had created, the surgical competitions, the promises of fortune to whoever donated organs, all completely fabricated to exploit David's confusion and lure us into Chen's trap. I cried when I read it, not because of the money, but because it proved that the man I'd known as my stepfather kind, fair, generous, had been real. The sick games and manipulation had come from the tumor and the predators who'd exploited him. Dr. Lawrence Chen's trial began 6 months after his arrest and became national news. The scope of his operation shocked even seasoned prosecutors. Over the 7 years he'd been operating, Chen had trafficked organs from at least 43 victims. Some had survived, left permanently disabled and traumatized. Others had died, either from the surgeries themselves or from complications after being sent home with missing organs and inadequate care. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Photos, medical records, financial documents showing payments from organ buyers around the world. Gerald Morrison's testimony detailed the entire operation. Chen showed no remorse during the trial. He sat calmly in his expensive suit, occasionally taking notes, treating the proceedings like a business meeting. When given a chance to speak, he was chilling in his detachment. "I provided a service," Chen said. "People needed organs to survive. I supplied them. The donors were terminal patients who were going to die anyway. I simply expedited the process and ensured their organs went to good use instead of being wasted." Everyone benefited. The recipients got life-saving transplants. The donors' families received financial compensation. And I facilitated transactions that our backwards organ donation system makes nearly impossible. "You murdered people," the prosecutor said. "You harvested human beings like they were livestock." "I harvested organs from bodies that were already dying. There's a difference." "Including David Morrison, who you plan to keep alive as long as possible while removing organs one by one? Including his children, who you lured to your facility under false pretenses?" The Morrison family represented a unique opportunity. Multiple compatible donors, significant financial resources, a complex family situation that allowed for creative recruitment strategies. "You plan to kill 5 people for their organs." "I plan to save multiple lives using organs that would otherwise be buried or cremated. From a utilitarian perspective, my actions created more good than harm." The jury didn't agree with his philosophy. They deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: organ trafficking, attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, kidnapping, and 43 counts of manslaughter for the victims who died in his care. The judge sentenced Chen to life in prison without possibility of parole, plus 300 years for the additional counts. "You exploited vulnerable people at their most desperate," the judge said. "You betrayed every oath you took as a physician. You commodified human life and justified it with twisted logic. The law allows me to ensure you never harm anyone again, and I'm exercising that authority fully." As they led Chen away in handcuffs, he looked back at the courtroom one last time. His eyes found mine across the gallery. He smiled. A small, knowing smile that said he'd do it all again if given the chance. I hoped I'd never see that face again. Gerald Morrison, who'd cooperated with investigators and testified against Chen, received a more lenient sentence. 20 years for fraud, conspiracy, and accessory to attempted murder. "You enabled a monster," the judge told him. "You exploited a dying man and put his children in mortal danger for money. While your cooperation is noted, your crimes deserve significant punishment." Several nurses and technicians who'd worked at Evergreen Medical Center were also convicted of lesser charges: conspiracy, fraud, aiding organ trafficking. Most received sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years. The full scope of Chen's operation would take years to untangle. Investigators were tracking organ recipients in 17 countries, trying to determine who knew they were receiving black market organs and who had been deceived by Chen's network. David Morrison died 6 weeks after the trial. The brain tumor took his mind piece by piece, but in the end, my mother sat with him, held his hand, and forgave him. Not for the fake death or the chaos that followed, but because she knew the real David beneath the illness. He died surrounded by all of us, the family he was trying to protect even as his mind failed. At the funeral, the 4 of us stood together for the first time without secrets or fear. Marcus had survived the harvesting attempt. Tyler demanded the verification that exposed the scheme. Jenna arrived just in time. We all played a part, and this time, we said goodbye for real. 9 months later, the courts confirmed David's real will. $8 billion, $2 billion each. But after everything we'd survived, money didn't feel like the victory. We used it to build something that mattered. Marcus created an ethical organ donation foundation. Tyler became a legal advocate against medical fraud. Jenna funded brain cancer research, and I opened free medical clinics across 5 states. Real care for people who never had access before. On opening day of the Seattle clinic, Tyler said, "Dad would be proud." And he was right. We turned a nightmare into something good. That night we had dinner together at Mom's house. Pot roast, rolls, apple pie, a real family meal. Something we never had before all this happened. We toasted to David, not the man manipulated by criminals, but the father who tried to protect us when he could. The true inheritance wasn't the money. It was us, 4 people who chose to stay family long after the danger passed. This is Dr. Rachel Kim reminding you that not every doctor heals and not every inheritance is about money. We survived because we questioned what didn't make sense, trusted each other, and refused to let fear divide us. If this story spoke to you, like and subscribe for more true stories about medical fraud, betrayal, and families who fight back.